Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today as we talk about business simulations. I have with us today our CEO of Dion Leadership, Steve Dion, and his guest today is Ken from Business Simulations. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Lauren, and welcome everybody. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us on what is now our last webinar from our 2020 webinar series. And we're going to be talking about business simulations and how to collaborate, innovate, and simulate the way in which learners can learn in a better and new way. And as Lauren mentioned, I'm joined by Ken Thompson. Ken is the leader of our business simulation partner, hailing us from Ireland. Welcome, Ken.
Thanks, Steve. It's a delight to be on board. I'm ringing in from sunny Belfast in Northern Ireland, and hopefully you'll get tuned in to my accent quite quickly.
And we'll interpret some of the words. We go back and forth a lot. We're kind of giving each other some good English lessons here on both sides. What we're going to cover today is a really exciting topic for us. And for those of you that don't know who Dion Leadership is, we are passionate about helping organizations engage their employees to start every day excited and end every day accomplished. So all the work that we do is really around that space. And we think this fits squarely within that mission and that goal of trying to create better organizations. These are our service offerings, and I like to always start our webinars to kind of say, where does this topic sort of fit in? And in this particular case, the leadership programs area, this topic fits squarely into the work that we do within that. Also, I want you to start to think about this in the context of team effectiveness and also organizational capability building. So we're super excited to have another new, different way to introduced to organization simulations. I know I've been using simulations in different forms and vehicles over the course of a couple of decades, but being able to have a partner that has some really slick virtual simulations that can leverage the technology that we have right now is super powerful and very relevant. So we're excited to share that with you today. These are some of the clients that we work with. And with many of these clients, we run leadership development programs. And within those programs, we're teaching classroom courses, but we've also moved many to blended learning, virtual learning, and other types of modalities to help an audience of learners to understand and apply what they're learning. And in organizations like these, they're finding this to be a very important and relevant area to how they can round out a leadership development program and curriculum. So just to get us going on the subject, the Dion Leadership approach to how we develop our learning programs is that we're trying to end with new habit formation and creation. So helping leaders develop new and instinctive habits. Well, that starts really with stories at the beginning to engage a learner. So presentations of information, data, concepts, examples, ways in which we can help somebody understand why this topic is relevant and important, and best practices for how to think about a leadership competency area. Then those stories build to create insight or opportunities to have reflection, make connections, practice, and provide feedback. So in the courses that our team develops, we are regularly working on trying to have opportunities for practice and meaningful insight and action, which is the third area to apply that feedback, adjust, and have confidence. So in our blended learning environment, we get an ability to have an opportunity to have somebody attend event, go back out and have some action and practice, come back and reflect and build upon that. And then we create a habit. And I wanted to raise this as we think about our classroom and virtual and blended learning and online learning courses, because a simulation, as Ken will talk about today, squarely fits this learning model and really accentuates it in many forms. So I'm really excited to spend some time today to kind of unpack that with you. And as we go into this, Ken's going to share a little bit about the sort of research and findings behind it, and then move quickly into a demonstration. But as we do that, these are some areas, and we'll come back to this at the end, but think about possible places that you might use these. And these are particular areas like a capstone event in a leadership program I just mentioned. This great application for leadership team, especially executive team offsite or a strategy event, focusing the organization on a critical topic area and getting them sort of to play in it, get socialized around that. Great for new teams to form and build a relationship very quickly. An enhancement to any kind of training class, and we'll kind of share what we mean with you with that, particularly with change management. Super solid idea for executive team development. So as we work with an executive team, give them opportunity to practice a new way in which they can build collaboration, have conflict, and unpack how their styles are. And then honestly, it can just be a good team building event. For those of you that have taken teams offsite to do like a escape room or some other kind of event, this is a great virtual way to do that in a heady, business oriented way, but it is also super, super fun. As somebody who's experienced them with our team, I can tell you it's a great idea and opportunity. So with that, we wanted to, as I mentioned, just quickly go over how sort of business simulations are run, what we mean by a business simulation, and then move right into a live demonstration of those. But before we do that, we wanted to quickly, Ken, I wanted to ask you this question. So Lauren's going to introduce a poll. If you wouldn't mind just giving us a sense of how you've experienced simulations before. So one would be, once or twice I've done these in a board game simulation in a classroom environment, or I've done these on a computer before. I've done them both ways. I really understand this, it's something that we do regularly, or this is new to me. It's something I've never done before, and I'm looking forward to understanding that. So we have some data coming in. Just give another quick second or two. Okay, so what we're finding, Ken, is that people on our team have experienced both forms of simulations before at a 43% level here. And for a few people, it's new to them as well. But for those that have experienced it, they really seem to understand it. So we kind of have a little bit of both on our audience today. So that can help us adjust our conversation accordingly. Okay, Ken, you want to take us away?
Yes, I'm delighted to take over. I don't know if you remember the last Olympics, but there was actually a short-sighted javelin thrower, and they didn't break many records, but they kept the crowd alert. So I can not only talk very fast, I'm going to go very fast here. So fasten your seatbelts. So a little bit of theory at the start. These references are available on request. People like learning through gamification. There's lots of benefits, and a simulation is gamified learning. Business simulations are also dynamic case studies brought alive. Also this idea of social learning. I have a friend and colleague called Jay Cross, who sadly died in 2015. And he wrote a really book called Informal Learning. And he was able to prove that 80 to 85% of the important information we learn is not learned out of books or a formal training course. It's learned informally. And that's finding things out for yourself, learning by making mistakes and getting advice from others. So it's a really good model to use. And there's lots of other benefits of game-based learning. Gartner have a really nice term, time to competency and depth of competency. And simulations can play strongly into that. So we have a nice paper we'll send you afterwards if you're interested in the foundation research. So next slide, please, Steve. This is a great slide. It's research done by Jessica Tribus at Carnegie Mellon University. And it's quite simple. If you have passive learning, you do get a number of benefits. The first three: cost effectiveness, low physical risk, and standardization of assessments allowing comparisons. If you do more hands-on learning, more interactive learning, you get high engagement, you can tailor the pace to the individual, and you get immediacy of feedback, and it's easily to transfer to the workplace because it's personal and learners really engage. And with game-based learning, if designed well, you can potentially get all 8 of these benefits.
And by the way, folks, if as we go through this, if you do have any questions, please use the chat. I'll monitor that, and I can ask Ken to comment on some areas as well as we go through this. So if you do have any questions, please use the chat.
Thanks, Steve. So we're going quite quickly here because I want to get you to the simulations quickly, and you can study the research at your leisure. Well, why did people do a business simulation? Well, first of all, it's a safe learning environment. You make mistakes which have no consequences. And I always say to people, imagine a new airline came out and it had everything going for it. You know, business class service at economy, prices, you know, great route map, you know, really modern planes. But in the small print, if they said, and by the way, we saved a little bit of money by none of our pilots are trained on simulators, you know, would you be interested in flying like in an airline like that? You know, so we need right first time is not a great strategy. You need an environment where you can safely practice recovery from failure. So it's a safe environment. It exploits experiential and social learning. Experiential learning is great where you do something and you get an immediate feedback, but it's even stronger if you have social learning where you can discuss with your colleagues what just happened there. And I think we've touched on it. These days, people want to be engaged through gamification. They don't want to be lectured to. So we call ourselves a discovery learning organization. Socrates, the great philosopher, said, I can't teach anybody nothing. I can only make them think. So we strong believer in discovery-based learning. And also simulations are scalable. If you have a global expert, then you're limited by who that global expert can reach. But with a good simulation, a lot of the knowledge is based in the simulation, and a lot of the skills then become engaging the audience around that knowledge, and you can scale up over the globe very easily with a simulation. In terms of the benefits, well, it's this virtual experience. Let's not make the mistakes in the real world. Let's make them virtually and let's learn from them. And that gives you the opportunity to try out some big mistakes and try out some interesting styles. If you're risk averse, develop a risk appetite in simulations. In a sense, if you don't make a big mistake in a simulation, you're wasting the opportunity and you're maybe saving that big mistake for real life. There's an awful lot of knowledge sharing in simulations, especially most of our simulations are played in teams. You learn so much from your colleagues about how they would approach that particular problem. Dilemmas are very important. We believe top performance is not those people who are the best decision makers, but the best dilemma resolvers. And dilemma is a values conflict. I always say, I have a dilemma. I love chocolate, but I want to have a six-pack stomach. It's hard to have those two things at the same time. And decisions are easy, but dilemmas are difficult. So our simulations are constantly putting you in the position of realistic dilemma where you've got to make a choice. You'd like to do A and B, but unfortunately, you're not able to do both of those at the same time. Simulations also can put you under change, under an enormous change pressure in terms of things can be constantly changing. And you can also put people under time pressure. So they're a great way of gelling a team together under a safe but high pressured simulation. Now, one of the things our clients do is when they debrief after simulations, one of the feedbacks we get is people's confidence and ambition goes up. And the way we do this, we have a term called requisite difficulty. We don't want the simulation to be too easy and we don't want it to be too hard. So we want people afterwards to say, that was actually quite difficult, but we managed to get there in the end. And that's what builds confidence. So this is a little background of why people do simulations. Next slide, please.
And let me add to that too, Ken, that, you know, as what we found is as learners, as leaders are more experienced, it gets more and more challenging to engage them in a learning environment. So simulations are a great way for more senior level people or more experienced leaders who have been to training classes or other programs where they've unpacked content in a traditional environment to really deal with things like these dilemmas. And it's really gets challenging to engage them at more senior levels. So this is, while this can work for everybody, we particularly found it very helpful for mid and senior level audiences.
Yes, this next slide is an interesting slide. It's all about the neuroscience and psychology of learning. And Steve and I are both really interested in how do people learn. And we've a nice paper in this we'll send you afterwards, but just picking out a few points. First point is serious fun. If people come just to have fun, then they won't learn anything. And if they come and are too serious, they won't learn anything either. So one of the tricks of the trade here is quite often we get the most senior person in the organization to introduce a simulation and come back and hear the final team presentations. And that gets people realizing this may be fun, but it's serious fun. I think the other point we talked about is stress. We need to give people a healthy level of stress. So there's some interesting points there that we try to reflect to try and make the learning more effective. So what I'm going to do now is talk about the main types of business simulation. And we started off as a custom simulation company. Every simulation was new for a client. And once we had 40 simulations, we realized, oops, that's not a great business model. But we were able to look back and go back to the clients and generalize these simulations down to about 7 areas that people are really asking for. And it's all about the dilemmas that leaders face. And we've got about 7, which we're not saying exhaustive, but we're saying it's a pretty good list. First of all, leaders have to deploy management resources effectively and valuable resources. They've got to apply them effectively and optimally. Second thing managers do is, and leaders do, they have to hold skillful conversations. For example, unhappy customers or staff who have issues. Third thing is, these days, a leader, it's not enough to be great at strategy. As a leader has to be able to deliver, make things go over the line. So we've some simulations all about delivering major projects. The fourth area is recovering urgent situations. We used to call this crises, but now we talk about it as an opportunity. So some of our simulations are really about putting you into crisis mode or minor crisis mode. One of the other tricks in simulation is competition, succeeding in competition. Sometimes the competition is external and the simulation is automatically providing that. But sometimes the competition is internal as well. And sometimes, how do you get the right blend between competition and collaboration? Resolving multiple dilemmas, that's a key aspect of leadership. And finally, probably almost the most important area, and our second simulation tonight will really focus on that. Leaders have to be able to convince and influence people and bring them along with them. So looking at the characteristics of simulations, we can have simulations can run in an environment like tonight, which is totally virtual. They've also historically run well face-to-face. And I think in the future, they're going to run in a hybrid model as well, where some people are in the same place and others aren't. Simulations can be played in teams or they can be played as individuals. Really depends on what you're trying to learn. Our preference is for generally team-based simulations because you have a wonderful opportunity of team-based learning and social learning. Simulations can be facilitated, which is mostly what we do. But some of our clients have said, have you simulations which can be self-directed and played in solo mode because we can't get everybody together at the same time. So that's another option. Simulations in the old days, they used to be short and intensive. These days, if it's an 8-hour simulation, we find our clients are playing it over 2 hours this week, 2 hours next week, for 4 weeks. And that actually improves the learning because the teams tend to get together in between, even if you don't ask them to, and it deepens the learning. There's two types of simulations. A model-based simulation is you're all in the same simulation. So if I gain market share, you will lose it. Sorry, that's the wrong way around. And that's an interactive simulation where we're all in the same simulation. A model-based simulation, which we're showing you tonight, is teams can all gain market share because the competition is the simulation, although those teams may still be competing in terms of the results. Simulations, as Steve has indicated, can be offered standalone or integrated into leadership and management development programs, a great way to pull things together. All our simulations are off the shelf. They run out of the box, but they can also be configured and customized. And simulations really fall into three types: running businesses, managing people, and managing projects. So Steve, was there anything else you would like to add there before we look at the simulations?
No, I think you did a great job of explaining them and why we think it's a great opportunity to help learners.
Brilliant. So we're going to go into our first of our live simulation demo, and the first simulation is called XSim. And XSim, the challenge is you are running an organization called Netbox, which looks not unlike Netflix. It's a real-time entertainment company, and you're the regional leadership team, and you're running this for a year in 4 quarters. It teaches, and learning is about skills of business acumen, strategy, operating an effective team, stakeholder management, because you have a difficult CEO to manage, and you will have crisis management as well. So basically everything that could happen happens in this simulation. Typically takes 6 hours to play it. We can play it with any number of teams, but normally it's usually 3 to 4 teams and typically 4 to 6 participants per team. It can be played on site, fully virtual or hybrid. And the decisions you make in the sim are about pricing, about product mix, about operational priorities and longer term organizational health. And each round you have to select a management project to do. So each round, an unexpected opportunity or a crisis will come in and you will have to deal with that. One of the things that's unique to this simulation is you get news updates every 5 minutes. And this will really test us teams' information filtering skills. There's a book that goes with the simulation that suggests there are 10 major management dilemmas in business. And actually you get all 10 of them in this simulation. There's also, as I said, opportunity for role plays with quite a difficult CEO to try and manage as you go through the process. There's opportunities for the teams to compete and collaborate. And as I said, there's a great book. So the background is your organization turned over 65 million last year with a net margin of 20%, 13 million profit. It's a pretty successful dynamic organization. So let me leap into the simulation now and show you what it looks like.
Yes, let's kick it around inside the simulation.
So we're in the simulation. Hopefully, Steve, everybody's seeing my screen.
Looks good from my end.
So just to help you with navigation at the start, down at the bottom, there's a little gears symbol where you can go full screen or restricted screen, and you can make it bigger and you can make it smaller as well. So you can tailor your screen. If I'm running this simulation, everybody would be looking at my screen at the minute while I'm doing the demo. But what will happen when I finish is we'll put the teams in the breakout rooms, get them to prepare, and then they will each log into their own separate version of the simulation. So let's look at what we do then. So along the top then, we're in quarter 1 of 4 quarters. We haven't accrued any penalties yet. Financials are all in thousands of dollars. On the left-hand side of the screen are the decisions my team must make. On the right-hand side are the results. And in the middle is a little dashboard. Now, if you look along the top, You will see a leaderboard where I can show how everybody's doing. So at the end of each round, we ask the teams to reflect on how they're doing, and then we show them the leaderboard. So teams are collaborating internally, but they can be competing with the other teams. There's also a documents inbox, and here all the documents are coming in about the simulation. There's static information, and then there's all these news items. And the news items, we can drip feed these, or we can give you them in batch. So we can make it difficult or very difficult. We've also some nice tools. We've some great summaries on strategic thinking models, useful models for teams, some good stuff on sales profit planning, a risk analysis tool, and a risk reward map. And basically, we're encouraging discovery. Remember, it's being played in a team, so we don't spoon feed the teams, but we're continually saying to the teams, are you using your resources to their full capacity? Because there's 5 or 6 of you. So let's look at the decisions first of all. First decision is pricing. I've got a price and I can move it upwards or I can move it downwards. Each grade represents about a 10% increase. When inside the simulation, it says my price level is 6, the market price level is 6 also. So the market price will move automatically in the simulation. We will get clues to that in the document. And the briefing paper says I'm a premium play, so I should really be above market average. So this is one of the dilemmas with pricing. Price elasticity. If you price too high, you kill your demand. If you price too low, you don't leverage your brand and you leave money on the table. So that's your first decision, pricing. The second decision is product mix. You've 3 products: real-time movies, real-time sport, and live is music events. And you have a budget you can spend every quarter, a fixed budget. And based on what's coming in the news feed, you need to decide what the consumers are asking for. For example, at a certain time in the simulation, there's really bad weather. And that means that sporting events are going to get cancelled. And there's no point really pushing them too hard. So you need to move your budget either to movies or live music events. And it's a very, very simple. This system was designed in Ireland. If you put one up, you have to put one down. You keep them all the same, or put one up or put one down. If you get that wrong, that's what I call a critical error, and you'll get penalties. So there's some things you will get penalized for. So that's decision number 2. Decision number 3 is then your operational priorities. And you have 4 choices there. And let me just put 4 other ones up. You've 4 operational choices and 4 organizational health choices. Now, the operational choices, at the heart of business to consumer businesses, is a customer loyalty ladder. So these choices here move people up and down the loyalty ladder. For example, sales and marketing together might bring new customers in. Quality and customer services might retain your loyals. And here's one of the dilemmas as well. It's often asked, people are asked to grow market share and increase profitability. That's very easy to say. But growing market share in this simulation brings in new customers who are not contributing anything because you're giving them a free trial. Growing profitability is all about your loyals and not bringing in new customers. You can do both market share and profitability in a benign market, but when the going gets tough, you really need to make a choice. So you've got 4 operational priorities and you've 4 organizational health priorities. These are longer term, for example, IT and people. And these manage these little traffic lights here. Now, when these start to go amber or red, you accumulate what we call organizational drag. It just slows the whole business down. Now, here's the paradox in the sim. In the sim, you're allowed 3 high priorities, but it's across all 8 of these. So people who really are operationally focused might decide to put most of them in here. And they might put 1 or none in here. What they'll do is they will hit their targets for a while, then they'll burn out the organization. People who are more long-term or HR focused will take another approach. They will put too much effort in here and they'll have a very healthy organization, but they'll shrink their top line, shrink their bottom line, and they'll be out of jobs. So that's one of the challenges. The theory is in this simulation, you're allowed 3 priorities. And you can put more than that if you want, but in the notes, it will explain there will be financial penalties. And the final thing you do in a round then is you have to select a management project. In the first round, we give you a really nice strategic project. In the next 2 rounds, we give you crisis, and we give you 4 options. And you have to pick one of 4 options, debate it as a team. You put in a little pin code to reflect which option you're choosing. And that impact is hardwired into the simulation. So I've made some sort of quick and random decisions. When we're all ready to go, and typically a round will take about 45 minutes, we hit submit. And it processes your decisions, it plays some fancy music, and then it shows your results immediately. So you can see my customer satisfaction's gone down, my market share is good. I have a mini P&L that says I've done 18.3 million in sales and 7 million in net profits. That's not bad for random decision making. So this simulation is also used to teach the essence of profit and loss to people who are not accountants. So it's good at socializing it because it is a very nice, simple profit and loss. There's a couple of other organizational measures as well. You've internal health. How's the organization doing internally? And you've got external vitality, which is what does the market think of your organization? But if we're now into round 2, the market price has gone up to 7. So I guessed that right. In terms of organizational health, I have a few problems brewing. I have a problem in my IT network and something cooking on people. And this will all then unfold in the remainder of the story. So this is a quick overview of XSIM. You play it for 4 quarters. It's a 6-hour simulation. At the end of each round, the teams study their results, ask themselves, how are we doing as a team? How are we doing as a business? What do we need to change? They come back see the rest of the group. The leaderboard is revealed, and I'll give you a quick look at the leaderboard. The leaderboard shows how everybody's doing. This was a group who were actually playing this a couple of days ago. They finished. So the leaderboard shows who's leading on sales, who's leading on net profits, who's got the best net margin. So this is kept up to date as you play the sim. And this becomes very exciting. And we can do all sorts of clever analytics on the leaderboard. We can show the sales for each team. We can then show the profits. We can say, well, if I go back then, so I'm showing, for example, let me go back to sales again. And we can also then do a comparison. This is what we call a magic quadrant analysis. Some teams are doing great on sales, others are doing good on vitality. The magic quadrant is the top right-hand side. The little circle is profitability. So all the results are stored on our database, and we can do automatic reports, custom reports on each of the teams afterwards. So that's probably, I think, Steve, I probably should stop there and see if there's any questions or anything you would like to add.
Thanks, Ken. I think that's a great place to stop. And a couple things I would just add is, as you can see, this is running through a web browser, so we can really use any type of technology. We've done it. You can use Zoom, Teams, GoToMeeting. And if you're going to do this virtually, people can interact this way. You can also have a team do some work in between a facilitated session. And then a really important part, as you can imagine, is the facilitator that's helping you unpack this, but also have learning moments with the team and have enough time for the sub team to dialogue and then the full team to discuss. And we're both discussing the decisions that you made and why from a business perspective, but also the interpersonal relationships that happen when the team has 45 minutes to read these documents, make decisions. How did they organize their team? What roles did they each play? So there's many different levels of learning that are coming out of this. It's something that I think is really valuable in this exercise. One of the questions was, is this something that we deliver or that we need to lead? This does require certification. As you can imagine, this is not a simple process to lead and facilitate. Dion Leadership has facilitators that do this regularly and are very skilled at it. But if it's something you wanted to bring into your organization and you thought you were going to teach multiple times, we could talk to you about what that might look like as well too. Really what we're doing in our partnership with Ken is he has some great algorithms here and data behind the simulations that will help run these, and so we're buying sort of the seat, if you will, and the data management behind it, and then pairing it with really rich and robust facilitation. So I think we should contrast this with a very different type of simulation next, which is really more in the change management space. And why don't we go into that, Ken, and then we can stop and pause and get more time for questions from the audience.
Great, Steve. Maybe you would put up the chapter slide while I'm just getting chapter loaded as well then. Great. So that was running a business enterprise. And in all the simulations, there's 3 key learning points. Topic there, that was business acumen, business strategy, but also you have to form and operate a team. So you automatically, there's great learning about the evolution of an effective high performing team. The third area is individual style. People who are bossy in life will be bossy in simulations. People who are slow engagers will be slow to engage in a simulation. And that's why the facilitation is so important, that you can bring out these different points. So XSIM is a business acumen simulation. Chapter is a people simulation. And your challenge in chapter is to create a high performing team. So you'll be looking at change management, and you'll be looking at creating a high performing team that you've inherited. So each team plays the role of a single person, a newly appointed team leader of a talented but dysfunctional team. Their objective is to turn the team into a high performing team quickly. So you collectively act as the team leader for 9 rounds, each of which represent 1 week. This simulation is a little bit shorter than XSIM. This can be done in 4 hours, and normally, again, any number of teams, but 3 to 4 teams with 4 to 6 per team is quite a common configuration. Totally on-site, virtual, or hybrid as before. The key decisions you're going to be making is how to influence the team members and how to improve their team process. In terms of special features, there's a built-in 3-dimensional online stakeholder mapping tool, which people find really good, and they take it away and use it afterwards. There's a nice little tool for conducting a health check on your team. You get the practice using our integrated high-performing team model, which is very generic and fits with almost all other more detailed team-based approaches. And there's an opportunity for significant role playing in this simulation, and I'll say a bit more on that. So I'm going to, without further ado, go into the simulation.
And I would add to that too, Ken, that what I think I particularly like about this simulation is it really helps to quantify things that people might think are a little bit more touchy-feely. So, a lot of times if you say business simulation, people think of the simulation we just did, I think. There are a lot of other simulations to put people in that help to replicate things in real life, and to say that these decisions that you make in things like how you influence people and change management, there is thought behind it. It's not just instinct, and it can make better decisions and outcomes in the organization. So this, as we go through this, I think you'll see that this helps to make a more tangible, explanation of what real world relationships and how they, how real world relationships unfold.
Thank you, Stephen. And this simulation actually is a simulation which could be played individually as well as in teams. XSim, there's really too much for an individual to do. So what we've got is, we'll start from the right-hand side. There's an information tab that gives you a little bit about the organization. Collectively, you're playing the role of Nick. And this is your first day at work, and you've taken over this talented team of 10 people, and your boss is called Ken, no relation. And Ken has said, look, great to have you on board, Nick. I need you to get this team into shape. They're not terribly happy. Confidentially, some of them applied for your job. So there's some change management issues you're going to have to deal with. You go and get your coffee, you sit down. 10 minutes later, somebody else comes. Ken's boss comes in and says, hi, Nick. I've heard so much about you. I know you're going to get this team into great shape. We as a company are experimenting with a high-performing teams framework, and this would seem the ideal place to put it in. So as you're doing it anyway, Nick, could you also pilot our high-performing teams framework? So you're only in work 15 minutes, and you've got these two interesting challenges. So we have a little high-performing team model that it's in our book. And basically, I have a lot of fun with people when I say, is creating a high-performing team a change management project or a process improvement project? And we all have a big debate. And at the end, we agree it's actually both of those things. And you do need to do both of them. And a lot of people only do one of them. So on the right-hand side of this diagram is the change management aspect. With each of your team members, you need to have insight into them, build a relationship, build rapport, understand and influence them, and get their commitment to support you as a team member. Then keep that commitment. So you've got to do that with each individual, and they're all at different places and they're all very different. However, you've got to operate across the whole team and make sure the team has healthy communications, runs its meetings well, everybody's aligned and accountable and are supporting each other. Now, some people only do the change management piece, and the first awful team meeting undoes all that. And other people, maybe more engineering oriented, do all the process work, but they create processes that nobody uses. So this simulation, you've got to do two things in parallel. You're doing change management and you're doing process improvement. Let's look at the change management piece first. So we give you a little tool in here, a stakeholder analysis tool. And stakeholder analysis is basically working out people's influence and attitude to a particular change you're proposing. And best practice in change management is to identify the most influential people and work with them first. And the theory is, if you get the most influential people on board, then you can bring everybody else on board. So the first part of this simulation is a planning piece. You're doing your change plan using the stakeholder analysis tool, and you're analyzing the organizational team itself using a process health check. So let me look at how you do that. So each individual has a kind of a CV. This first page is the dashboard. This is Alberto, for example. And it says, Alberto, I don't have much of a relationship with Alberto. It might be negative or it just might be absent. In terms of Alberto's attitude to being in this team, Alberto's not positive about it. He's in the red. So you know that. Then with Alberto, it says you can, each round, you could make an intervention with Alberto. But here's the interesting bit. There's 10 people. Each round, you're only allowed to intervene with 4 of them. So if you pick 4 non-influential people, your change is going to go nowhere. And you only get 1 chance at an intervention. So some of the interventions are nice and safe. Meet with a team member informally. That will build up the rapport and relationship. Others are a bit more detailed. Get their advice about how well the team is working. That's more building a little bit of adoption because you're engaging them. And there's one down here that's absolutely crucial. Ask a team member to play a supporting team leadership role. In change management, that is the commitment move. Now, if I did that move at the minute with Alberto, Alberto would just show me the door, and I would have wasted that intervention because A, I don't have enough relationship with Alberto, and B, Alberto is currently an opponent, and you generally can't get opponents to become champions just like that. So with somebody like Alberto, I might meet with Alberto informally. Then if I go to another colleague with Helen I have a better relationship with, so maybe I don't need to meet with her informally. And he says, I'm mousing over here, it's telling you what all the different things can do. So I'm picking 4 individuals at pretty much at random. And those are I'm making interventions with them. So in terms of finding out more about the people to steer these interventions, each person has a public profile. And that tells me a bit about their attitude to the team and their insights in the relationship. So that's given me a little bit of a steer of where they are in terms of influence and attitude. The second thing is their private profile, which is a little talking avatar, which may not play over the webinar.
I feel that our commitments to the team leader and colleagues are very...
But basically, Donna tells me, it's like I'm having an interview with Donna, and Donna tells me how the team's currently working. And it's written down here underneath it. A lot of our clients' English isn't their first language. So it says our commitments to the team leader and colleagues are very relaxed and informal. So that should ring a warning bell around accountability. So that's a weakness. When the spotlight was really on our team, Ken would ask the more senior team members to keep an eye out for any potential risks. So there's some sort of support system in place. So basically, I'm going through all the individuals, finding out, are they in the top 4 I should intervene with, gathering knowledge about the process. So I've done my 4 team interventions. I'm allowed 2 process interventions. So I picked up there was something about accountability. So I need to do something around clear and defined accountabilities. So we've a general area, a very high level model of a high performing team, meetings, alignment, communications, and support, and they all break down into 4 areas. So, and I'm going to make another intervention here pretty much at random. Then I'm going to hit the big submit button and show you what it looks like. So we go to our results page immediately. We're into round 2. I'm trying to move all the individuals into green. And some of the people you see, I've moved a little bit. You can see the upside down triangles where they were previously. So I've made a little bit of progress. I've moved things a little bit on the team process as well. And if I want to see how I'm really doing, I can drill down. And for example, I can see communications is pretty good. But the conflict resolution process, for example, leaves a little bit to be desired. And then over on the right-hand side, we have this adoption grid where as we go through it, I'm looking for people to turn green and I'm looking for the hit to see when that happens. And I have the full history. So I'm looking to get, in this simulation, you'll do really well if you get 7 or 8 people adopting and becoming high performing team members. And then you're trying to get the process effectiveness up. Then if I go back to the individuals page again, I'm into the next round and I want to intervene with Alberto, but just like the real world, Alberto's out of office. He's gone on a leadership development program. The other thing we can do is we can make any of these characters into a role play. And then instead of the simulation calculating your scores, it's facilitated and the facilitator gives you a token and you put your scores in. So it's a powerful little sim that does 2 things really, change management and then process improvement, all in the context of creating a high performing team. So I think I'm going to stop again and see if Steve, there's anything you want to add or if we've any questions.
Thanks, Ken. And yes, feel free now to ask any more questions in the chat if you have any, now that we have the 2 simulations. I'll go back to our PowerPoint to close up, but I think this gave a great example, as I was saying, as we were teeing this up, to show some of those what should be very tangible decisions that a leader makes when they think about who's on my team and what do I know about them and what's the order in which I'd communicate. And it makes it just so real, even though it's on a computer screen, of how you would interact with an audience. And what I do like about this as well is it is model agnostic. I know you shared a couple models in there, but we have a couple of change management classes in different sizes and versions, or communication classes. You can teach any of those areas of best practice competency development and then run the simulation, and it makes perfect sense as well. You don't need to use a particular model or approach to have the learner be able to apply this. So let's talk a little bit about process in our last couple minutes together.
Yes, and I'm going to have to go hyper fast here. So I think I've talked about multidimensional learning is really the most powerful. I talked about in any team-based simulation, you have the topic and the team and the style. And the trick is you always have to start from the learning objectives. And then in terms of the learning, experiential learning isn't great if you haven't thought what you want to learn. So you need to think about your learning, but also through all the sharing, you can plan, you can learn from other people's, what we call shared learning. And a lot of learning we get out of this is also called serendipitous learning. It's in the UK and Ireland, we call it the money down the side of the furniture learning. You weren't expecting to get it, but you gained learning unexpectedly. Some of the best learning is like that. And then the different mediums in the learning. Some of the learning is through engaging with the computer. Some of the learning is interpreting the information that is coming into you, being able to read the markets. And some of the other information is how you engage with the facilitators and the role plays. So you put all that together, you've 9 different dimensions of learning. And what Steve and I would do with it, the start of an assignment, we always start from the learning objectives, never start from what the sim can do. So Steve, if we could go to the next one. This slide is a busy slide, but it's probably our most valuable slide. If you don't have a process for learning through a simulation, everybody will have a great time. They'll all be high-fiving and patting each other in the back, but they won't have learned anything. So no matter what sim we do, we have a highly structured process for setting it up that gets people briefed in the sim. They set up the team, they do their planning, they play around, they get feedback, they look at the leaderboard, and right at the end, we send them all off to do a team presentation. What did they learn? How did they do against their goals? What would they do differently if they did it again? And what were the 3 insights? They come back into the room, share this with everybody. We have what we call the big reveal, or the Oscars, where we show the final leaderboard. Then the facilitator will close out with most important learnings that normally come out of that kind of sim. And then individuals are given a chance to make sure they just didn't learn as a team, which we call we learning, they learned as an individual.
And this process can really work in rapid succession if we're teaching a 3-day workshop where people are flying in and they're doing all this together. But it is really nice in this new world. I think one of the benefits of our post-COVID world and moving to blended and virtual learning is to be able to do this in smaller hunks and increments. We have some programs now that would have been, 3-day workshops, and now it's going to be 32-hour events over the course of the year. So you can imagine how this can fit well into that, where they have time to reflect and play and plan, and we can build the learning path around this model.
This slide here is quite fun. How do you extract the maximum learning value from a simulation? What are the key things in getting people into the right frame of mind for a simulation? And the answer is easy. Pretend the sim is the real world. So you don't get to pick your team members, just like your family. You have to meet imposed deadlines with your little say in. You start without all the information, and the information is probably wrong anyway. When things go wrong, you are accountable. There's nobody you can blame. Nobody has the answers. You just keep trying to improve. And as Nike say, you just have to do it. But however, something you do have that you don't have in normal life, you have a demo, you have a set of briefing papers, you have a team you can rely on, provided you set it up right. We give you ample time to prepare yourselves. You can ask questions before you start, and we keep pausing the simulation. There's as much time for reflection in a simulation as there is for making the decisions.
So in closure, I wanted to go back to our original slide about application. And now that you've seen this, have you think about different ways in which you could use an event like this. And you could see these are two sample simulations. There's a few different competency areas and simulation models we could also add to a different type of learning need that you would have. But you could see how this could be reinforced in the classroom environment, but also sit as a standalone activity. And it could work as with first level leaders, it could work with senior professional staff, but it also has a great application for senior executives who are not usually that excited to sit in a training class. I've been through training, I'm worldly, I get this. And as we all know, we also need to sharpen our skill set. This is a great way to engage that learning audience as well. So we're super excited about what that could look like in these different applications. As we close, I wanted to quickly close though and ask, just so we understand, as you see these things and you think about your learning plan for 2021, knowing that we're going remote, virtual, you know, is this something that your learners you think would be excited about to use, or is this just not something that you think would grab an audience of time to, you know, to do this, and you'd rather be in a more traditional learning environment? We'd just like to get a sense as we close up here as to where you're at in using this idea. Part of the reason we partnered with Ken, and I'm super excited about this, is we looked at a lot of simulation companies over the years, and you know, we had to go to Europe to find one that we felt was practical, made a lot of sense, fit the types of learning and the way we want to do this. And I'm super excited to sort of bring this here. And it's something that, frankly, I know, Ken, you're excited about, that it gives you an opportunity to work in the US market in a way that you haven't either.
Yes, we're really excited about, we want to work with top class facilitators who understand it's not all about the sim. It's all about giving people a really valuable and deep learning experience. So we're very excited about working with you guys.
And then to close, because we're at the top of the hour, thanks again, Ken, for bringing your expertise to this. I hope people have a better appreciation for what simulations can be, both business and otherwise. Just wanted to quickly share our 2021 catalog, which now includes these simulations, is available on our website. So if you haven't seen that, we have about 40 plus courses to offer. And I also wanted to share that we recently just published a blog on leadership development and culture. And I think this fits well within that. So if you have an interest in reading about that, I wanted to share that with you. And we've had a lot of, this has been really popular. We've gotten a lot of great feedback this year. So our plan is to invest in doing complimentary monthly webinars all of next year as well. We have a lineup of 12 topics already out there, and we'll probably adjust them as the year evolves, because it's, who knows what the year is going to bring. But our first topic is going to be unpacking Dare to Lead, which is Brene Brown's book. And we have some facilitators that are certified directly with Brene in that content. And we thought that that idea of courage and vulnerability is a great way to start out the year. So one of our senior consultants and facilitators, Gail, is going to be my guest in the January webinar. So if that's of interest, the invite is in the chat, and we'd love you to sign up. Thanks again so much for your time and attention. Have a great rest of your year. We appreciate you joining our community of learning, and we wish you the best of luck as you close out your year, and see you next year. Thanks.